This is Lindsay Duffy, VP of Operations at Asset Living. Lindsay's story is about family, legacy, and love. Lindsay, take it away.
Hi, guys. I do not have notes. But my story started when I was 11 years old in multifamily. As some of us are, I would say that I fell into it, and I kind of did, but I also chose it. And I also want to say that our past doesn't always define us, but it does shape our future, and it shapes who we want to be, and especially who we want to be as leaders. I grew up in California, which is super affordable, let me tell you. And my parents were super hard workers, and they really tried to put food on our table, but struggled. We couldn't afford an apartment, so we were living at a motel off of Main Street, and it's a week-to-week motel, and they were doing painting jobs, just trying to put top ramen usually on the table that we had to share. They were painting an apartment community one day, and the owner came out and said, "You guys are doing a really good job. You work really well as a couple. Are you looking for a full-time job?" And of course, my mom and dad were like, "Yes, please, something." And he offered my mom to be a property manager at 3 of his apartment communities, and my dad to run maintenance on those 3 apartment communities. So I grew up on site, which is why I always tell my team, do not live on site. The stories, I have some good stories, and I'll just start by saying my dad was my hero. He was many heroes. There was the Ohio rapist that he caught when I was 11 or 12 years old. He was peeking in my window and well known in Ventura, California. He chased him down, tackled him, and he was arrested and sentenced, I think, to like 28 years in prison. So not only was he my hero, but he was everyone's hero. I swore I would never stay in property management, so the first thing I did was run very far for multifamily for a whole 3 years. And I worked on the vendor side, doing advertising and marketing with, back then it was Apartment Guide, I think everyone's worked there, which actually grew my passion for marketing, that then grew my passion for training. So for 9 years, I did training and marketing on the vendor side, and then wanted to be on the operations side and ran marketing and training departments. It was on this stage a year ago, and I'll say this has been probably one of the hardest years of my life, and it's not necessarily 2025 because it's been a solid year. And it's the first conference I was at for a while, and I was chosen to be a speaker. And it's the first time I spoke for about 2 years. July 1st, my mother passed from a heart attack, and it came out of nowhere. She was actually the caretaker for my dad, who was dying from stage 4 cancer. So it's always the caretakers that tend to die first. Well, that was my mother, unfortunately. And so 2 months later, I decided to come to this conference just to kind of get clarity on what I wanted. And so I was standing here, actually I was actually sitting in a chair on a panel, and I was speaking about negotiations, because we negotiate a lot in life. And I always use my children. I have 4 sons. So if you have boys, let alone 4 kids, you're negotiating with terrorists every single day. And I actually said that on stage, and my now boss came up to me and said, "Wow, that really resonated with me. I like you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she asked me to do coffee. And so coffee turned into lunch and a friendship. And I was given an opportunity to become a vice president. What's funny is, at the conference last year, we were told to write 3 things on a piece of paper of what your goals were for the next 1 to 5 years. And my first goal, after being a director for 12 years, was to become a vice president. That was my goal for myself. Titles might not mean something to somebody, but it means something for me when I've done it for so long. So that was my number 1 goal. My number 2 was to make my parents proud, because my dad was struggling. I just lost my mom. And the other one was to make myself and my family proud. I have 4 sons that look up to me, and whether they like me or not, depending on the day, I still have to set some kind of example for them. And she offered me the position to become vice president. A week later, my dad died. And so I was having a conversation with him before he passed, because we were doing hospice with them, and he's like, "You need to stop taking care of me and start taking care of yourself. All you do is take care of everyone else. This is something you want, do it." And so I sat on it for a couple weeks, and I'm like, I'm gonna follow my dad's dream. It's what my parents would have wanted for me. It's what I want for myself. And if I can impact more lives And if I can have that owner that changed the trajectory of my whole family's life, if I can do that for other people, for employees, for residents, I want to be able to make that impact on a bigger chance. So I took the job, and I've been here for almost a year, and this conference changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my career, and it's very meaningful, the connections that you make here every single day. And I'm not big on tattoos, but I did have one that says, "Make them proud." And every single day I look at it, and I hope I'm making them proud.